So thank you for joining the second episode of the Financial Literacy Network podcast. I'm Bob Stammers, and I lead the FLN, which is made up of CFA charter holders that have a significant experience in designing, implementing, and managing financial literacy and investor education programs. The group was organized to provide advice, resources, and support to CFA societies around the world interested in financial literacy and investor education, and in supporting like-minded organizations looking for additional resources to help manage their programs. So today's guest is Stephen Davenport, who in addition to being a CFA charter holder and an FLN board member, is the Director of Alternative Investments at Decatur Capital and the creator and head of the Financial Literacy Foundation at CFA Society Atlanta. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
Sure, Bob, it's great to be here.
So I want to concentrate our discussion on the Financial Literacy Foundation and how you use social media to distribute content and messaging. Before getting into that, I really wanted to know, why does a local society of investment professionals like CFA Society Atlanta want to execute and manage financial literacy programs in the local community?
Well, when we were having our strategic planning meeting, when I was the president of the society, we looked at ourselves and said, how do we feel like our brand is known in the community? Is it just among investment professionals, or is it more broadly known? We're starting to have a lot more of our members who are in the private client business or individual and not in the institutional space. So we looked at it and said, hey, how do we make sure that the people in the community know who we are? And when we thought about it, we said we have 1,600 members with an average of 20 years experience, and most of them, majority, have a second degree. And we felt like those members and their knowledge and the lack of knowledge and in the community around financial literacy made it a great match to take what we have and try to distribute it to a community that we really need help in this issue. So it felt like younger members were saying, how do we make a difference and use what we have? And they can't necessarily contribute money. They can contribute time. And then older members were saying, I can't necessarily contribute time, but I can contribute money. So it felt like there's a need and there's a desire to help. And those two things met and caused us at the strategic planning to say, let's pursue the idea of a foundation as a way to make a difference in the community and help to expose people to the CFA brand.
So you were just touching on it. So why create a financial literacy foundation as opposed to some other type of organization as the umbrella organization for your financial literacy and charitable activities?
So yeah, we could have been a committee within the society. And as a committee in the society, we could have performed some of the tasks. But what we couldn't do is take contributions and receive a tax benefit. So by setting up a foundation, we applied to the IRS and got our 501c3 status, which is different than the professional organization status. So therefore, we are allowed to take contributions, and the people are allowed to take a deduction. So if we're going to ask people to contribute to us versus United Way or other good causes, we felt like you needed to have the tax benefit along with the good feeling of making a difference in the community.
That makes sense. So are you concentrating on any particular audiences in the local community, or have you identified particular organizations that you are providing capital to as a charitable contribution?
Yeah, we've made our mission to really focus on young adults starting their lives. And so I like to say that students, in college, they somewhere around senior year, they stop being a student and start adulting. And as they start adulting, they realize that managing their money, understanding investments, understanding what to do with credit cards and credit scores really start to become important. And so we felt that was an area. One research study said that if you could put your education as close to the event as possible, then that education is going to have more higher effectiveness. So when you look at what's happening with students, once they become that second semester, they're looking at buying a car, they're looking at getting a credit card, they're looking at getting an apartment, they're going into HR and saying, oh, I want, this health benefit or that health benefit, and I want to sign up for a 401k. If you give people education right before they go and to make those decisions, we felt that was the sweet spot of where we could try to provide an impact. And when it comes to where do we put contributions, we felt the population could be broken down into 3 areas. What I'll call the fragile, which will be on the 0 to 35th percentile in income. And I would put the poverty line somewhere around that 17th percentile in income. And that group has less than $400 in savings. That group is struggling to sustain themselves and just stay their head above water. Then I would say the second group is the 35th percentile to the 65th, and that's where I call the emerging. Those people are emerging from just getting ahead to trying to put some money aside, and they have less than $1,000 in savings, but they're starting to, what I'd say, move into the period where this information would help them. And then there's the top 30% or 35%. And that group is made up of mostly college grads and people who are, able to have a 401k, able to invest in markets. And so I call that group the developed. And so we're trying to focus our educational efforts on the developed and the emerging. And we're trying to use local charities to help in that fragile group. But what we've tried to do is just look at the problem and apply the discipline of the CFA training and look at things like a business and say, how do we allocate capital in a way that's going to have an impact?
So what do you say to people that would like to start a financial literacy foundation? So in your opinion, well, we talked a little bit about the pros, but what are some of the issues that people should be concentrating on if they're thinking of creating and managing a foundation for financial literacy programs?
Well, one of the things we first did is said we can't do everything. So what we have is human capital that we think it knows a lot and could present well. But we used a local community foundation to open up our first account. So the first thing we did is find the Cobb Community Foundation, and they said, make a contribution to your account of 10,000 or 20,000, and you will have the ability to set up a donation icon on your website. We will send out letters to any donors, and we will send out and do an evaluation on any grantees. So immediately we got a partner, and that partner then helped us to set it up. I'd say that that's one thing I would look for is look at what other people are doing and learn and utilize those ideas. You don't have to recreate the wheel. And I think that one of the things I would say is a con is that it's a very competitive space. There are a lot of people trying to do a lot of things. And I think it's better to focus on where is the heart of your membership and what is the age group and how do they want to contribute and where is the in that community. We've got 160 societies worldwide in very different communities throughout the globe. And I think that each of those communities is made up of members with very unique skills. So what I'd suggest is use the community and what its needs are and where there's a gap, and use your resources and try to match those two things together.
Yeah, I like the fact that you guys are concentrating on students. I mean, one of the things about those students and universities is a lot of them understand that they're in need of financial literacy work because of the types of financial decisions they're making. So I'm wondering if that's something that, people that are considering either creating a program or even a foundation, and as you say, is to have a good sense of what audience that they're trying to engage and whether that's, engaging for their members as well.
Right. Well, part of it is we were already on the campuses with the research challenge. So we said we have these relationships with 14 local colleges. So if we're already talking to the people in the business school, wouldn't it be great to say to them, hey, we don't want to just help you with this team of 5 students competing in the research challenge. We want to help all of your students compete and, achieve financial wellness. And the business schools all looked at us and said, this is great. We think it should be a part of the education. There's a big groundswell of belief that this is a core part of a person's education, and it just hasn't been given that status in a lot of cities, states, countries. So we all know there's a great need. We all know there's a great deal of knowledge and ability in the CFA community. So my thing is, how do we merge those two things together? Is it in training classes that are run by CFAs as part of a committee? Absolutely. Is it by, setting up a foundation? It could be. I think that we will figure out, as most creative, smart people in this industry do, what is the right thing for each individual situation. And I have faith that, very smart people who are figuring out the alpha on a oil strategy regarding gas versus oil will be able to figure out how they can best deploy the resources of their society in the community. I think there's an overlap between that analytical ability and the desire to make a difference that will and has combined in Atlanta to produce some great things.
That's good. So one of the things I wanted to also talk about is your foundation. One of the unique things that it has done is it focuses on social media as a distribution mechanism. So why the focus on social media, and what are the benefits over traditional distribution methods?
Well, what we realized is that this is a huge problem, and getting people where they are is more important than getting out to certain people, right? So when we look at the communities, I would go into meetings with middle schoolers and start talking about retirement, and I look over at the kids, and all of them were looking at their phones. And I realized that's where they are. So they're interested in things and videos on YouTube. And I said, we've got to try to put our materials where it's going to be easy for them to consume and use and get them in pieces, because attention spans, if you say, hey, I want to hold an 8-hour class and help you with financial literacy, nobody will attend. So what we did is we said, let's try to make this consumable, significant, and pointed in that it will create a foundation for a person. So as a board, we sat down and said, if we had an hour to spend with somebody we loved, what would we say to them? How would we educate them? What would be the 12 points? We came up with 12 points under 4 general categories: live with less, manage risk, invest in yourself, and invest for yourself. And those 4 concepts are the heart of what we're trying to do with people. And that became, why don't we then take those ideas and present them in a way that'll be fun? I think the term that somebody used was edutainment. And we're not trying to make a light of it, but we're trying to make it so that somebody sits there and enjoys the process of going through the concepts. And that's what led us to do animations for each of these concepts. 3 to 4 minute animation times 12, you're at 48 to 50 minutes. We think that's the right amount of time that you're going to get people to commit to this. And then you provide research, research and links to other information that will give people the step 2, 3, and 4. So get them to step 1, get them a core level of knowledge, and then go and show them, independent sites and places where they can get other information.
Yeah, so you're talking about, one of the benefits is to create something that's going to be engaging. And if it's engaging, it's much more likely that the users are going to learn the messaging that you're trying to impart to them. So what are some of the other things that if people want to create a financial literacy program, they could be using social media for, or are there any other potential issues that you see in using social media as a distribution channels that people should be aware of?
I think the most important thing that people need to be aware of is that we're not doing anything for a product. We give no endorsements. We are, trying to uphold the highest ethical standards and just giving education. We want to educate people. And in education, if you understand that, it comes across as, gee, there's nothing to sell here. They're not trying to sell me on anything. They're trying to inform me. That's the big step, that you realize that, hey, there's a whole bunch of competitors out there. Bank America has, their Khan Academy. Uh, Wells Fargo has their program. Everyone has a program to educate, but then they have an ad for a mutual fund or an ad for a mortgage or another product, credit card. We don't have any ads. We don't have anything other than information to try to help them. And I think that's the key. We try to use Facebook and LinkedIn because Facebook has a lot of women on it, a lot of mothers, and we promote our videos on those 1 month. Each month we have a different video. We have 12 videos. And so each month we spend $100 and we boost it to 18 to 24-year-olds in the Atlanta and Athens area. And then sometimes we boost it all across the state of Georgia. And when we boost it, we get about 6,000 to 8,000 views for $100. It's hard to do anything with a professional presenting to a group of 10 or 20 students for less than $400 or $500 in terms of valuing people's time. So I look at that $100 we spend on social media and say, that's a great way for us to get our materials out there. Just one story. So last year we did a video on spending. I looked at the person who liked it and he shared it with his community. He said, this is really good material and is good for everyone to try to work on their spending habits. And I looked at who posted it. And it was a minister in Athens who had come here from Ethiopia. And he is a pastor of a small church in Athens. And he's got 500 followers. And I looked at that and said, we would never have come across this pastor in my CFA travels. But by taking material, making it relevant, and then making it easy for him to then share it with his community, look at all the people who potentially benefited from that concept on spending. And that's what I think is, we've got to make a big difference. And there's a lot of problems to solve. And I think that using creatively our resources and our experiences can make a big difference in our communities.
So we're going to eventually incorporate your videos into the FLN offerings, but if people want to see the videos now, how can they find them, Steve?
So you go to YouTube and it's called Financial Literacy Network, FLN, and there's a YouTube channel and the videos are there. And we just came out with the videos also translated into Spanish. So we felt the Spanish community was being really affected by COVID. And we felt that this would be a way to try to help that community and give them some more likelihood that they can take, if a college student comes from a Hispanic family, they could then take that video back to their family and pass it on. Really, the process of networking and social media is really about trying to pass on good. There's plenty of misinformation out there. And what we're trying to do is pass on good information, pass on good ideas. And in that way, we build, the community up and we help show why CFAs are different.
Great. So Steve, unfortunately we have to end it there. So Steve, thanks so much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's great, Bob. Stay safe.
Thank you. So for our users, thank you so much for joining us. As Steve said, you can find the videos out on the FLN YouTube and be on the lookout for our next episode in about a week. With that, I'm signing off. Thank you very much.